Hey everyone, my name is Emily and this is my entry for the 2016 NYX Face Awards. I'm starting by sponging a light yellow body paint onto my neck, chest, and shoulders. I like using a sponge for this because I find that it helps give the smoothest and most opaque coverage. You could keep this to a smaller area, but I decided to cover any skin that was showing. I'm also taking this paint into the contours of my face to act as a base for the shadows that I'm going to use later. I put this color under my cheekbones, on my temples, on the side of my nose, underneath the front of my brows to make my eyes appear a bit more sunken in, and I'm also putting a tiny bit on my cupid's bow. And now using this hexagon stencil that I found at the craft store, I'm going to start sponging various colors over the yellow base. I'm starting with the lightest paint and sponging a pretty large area. As I move into darker colors, the space I'm sponging will get smaller and smaller. This process can be a little tedious, but I found that the pattern looks best when you line up the stencil with where you had previously put it. This keeps all of your honeycombs going the same direction at the same angle. Next, I'm going in with a light orange. Make sure when you're sponging that you're holding down the stencil somewhat firmly. If you're not, the body paint will bleed underneath and ruin the nice clean lines we've got going. I'm following up with a darker orange, being careful to still line up my stencil. After this, I'm going in with a brown in some very small areas. Once I have that finished, I'm taking a white body paint on a pretty fine brush and highlighting one side of all of the darker hexagons. A source of light is where highlights and shadows come from, so pick where your light source is and highlight according to that. Once we have that done, it's time to move on to the face. I'm taking a yellow eyeshadow and placing that over where I put the paint earlier. In the contours, it's the same idea as when we were sponging on the chest. I'm going to be gradually building up darker and darker colors. I'm trying to blend these as much as possible so I end up with a really smooth, almost airbrushed look. I chose to use yellow, orange, a brick red, and then finishing up with a darker brown color. I know that's a lot, but I really wanted a nice smooth gradient of color. I do the nose contour a little differently than the rest of my face. I chose to build up the darkest colors down at the tip of my nose and up underneath that front half of my eyebrow. I left the middle pretty much blank except for the yellow base. Next, I go in with a cream highlighter and apply that to all of the high points of my face. I wanted this look to be super glowy, so I went a little crazy with the highlighter. I set all of that with a powder highlighter that has some gold reflect to it. All that glow made my face just a little too bright for me, so I went back in with a darker brown to add some more contrast into my contour. And now moving into the eyes. I wanted the face to be monochromatic, so I'm using the same colors as I used in the contours. I'm mapping out where I want each color to be using a fluffy blending brush. For now, I'm layering them in the same order as I did on the cheeks. I'm keeping the eyeshadow pretty rounded over my lid, but on the outer corner I'm pulling it up into a large wing shape and merging it into the contour on my temple. Once I have the colors where I want them, I'm going in with a flat C-shaped brush and patting motions to darken the colors. I'm pulling this color up towards my temples and connecting it back in underneath my lower lash line. I continue this with the rest of the colors, blending each color out slightly less than the color before it. If you notice that you're getting a lot of fallout, an easy way to clean that up is to take a large fluffy brush and brush quickly upwards. If you brush downwards, it's going to rub those pigments into your skin. Next, going back to that fluffy brush, which I have a little bit of the yellow on, I'm going to blend out all the edges and make sure they're flush with the skin. I wanted to create a halo eye, which is when it's darkest on the inner and outer corners of the eye, so I'm mirroring the shadows onto the inner corner of the eye, starting with the yellow, then orange, red, and then brown. I'm also pulling these shadows onto the lower lash line. Once I have that how I like it, I'm dabbing that same cream highlighter onto the center of my lid. I'm also going to go in and darken that outer corner just a little bit more because that highlight always seems to make me think it needs to be darker. Our eyeshadow is done, I've filled in my brows, and now it's time to move on to eyeliner. I start by lining my upper lash line and creating a huge wing on the outer corner. To draw this, I start about 1/4 of an inch under the tail of my brow and pull straight down towards the lower lid. I connect this back into the liner, fill in any blank spots, and build up the thickness to where I want it to be. Once the wing in the liner is looking just how I want it to, I draw a small wing on the inner corner of my eye and connect it back in on my lower lash line. I play around with this a little bit more until I'm happy with the thickness and the opacity. Next, I move into this sort of cut crease shape on my lid. I'm making a line that runs sort of parallel with the line that we've already made. I'm drawing pretty lightly and I don't have a lot of the product on my brush because I'm just trying to get an outline of where I want it. You can always add more, but it's more difficult to take things off. To make my eyes appear a bit more round and open, I'm also drawing a line underneath them. I'm not drawing this line along the lash line, but a little bit underneath. This will make your eyes look a little bit bigger. Of course, a queen has gotta have her gold, so I'm going on the outside of each line with a gold liquid liner. This is one of my all-time favorite products. I love this stuff. It's like gold leaf in a tube. It's beautiful. I love it. If you want to see the products that I'm using, they're all listed in the description box below. I was looking at my brows and they just didn't feel like enough, so since I love this stuff so much, I ran it through the front half of my brows. I'm moving on to lips using a black liquid lipstick. I am being very careful because this stuff does not come off. So I'm lining around the edges and then filling in the center. I always slightly overdraw my upper lip, so I'm starting by drawing in my cupid's bow and figuring out where I want the highest of the points to be. I carefully line the outside of my lips and then fill them in. This lipstick dries matte, but I wanted to bring more of that shine into it, so I'm patting a gold shadow over the center of my lips. Then I was like, hey Emily, you know what would look good? More gold liner. So I started adding little freckles all over my cheeks. When I do freckles, I like to do them in groups of 2 or 3. It ends up looking more natural if you place them randomly and asymmetrically. I'm also adding these to the beginning of my brows and on my brow bone. Natural freckles come in all sorts of sizes, shapes, and colors, so I got out my brown face paint and added a couple more. I'm adding these in all the same spots that I put the gold ones. I also wanted to add some dots coming off of the liner just because I thought it would look cool, and you should do things just because they look cool. Jumping back into the eyes, I'm adding a bit of mascara to the upper and lower lashes because I'm going to apply some falsies later. I keep feeling like there's just something I'm forgetting. Oh, right, some bees. I start by drawing a smaller circle with a larger circle on top of it. You'll also want to have a reference picture close by if you're doing these bees. Not gonna lie, I practiced them quite a few times and I had a reference picture and they're still not perfect, but that's okay. Next I'm taking a black liquid liner and drawing his little head on, and I'm trying to do these little strokes to make it look like they're little fuzzy bees. I give him 2 more little fuzzy stripes and a little stinger before starting on his legs. I don't know why, but the legs were the hardest part of these bees for me. When I was looking up reference pictures, I saw that bees have 4 segments on their leg, 1 wider segment followed by 3 shorter segments. I was most concerned with how the front 2 legs were going to look rather than the back 4 because the wings were going to cover most of them. For the wings, I added 2 little teardrop shapes onto the bee's back. Next I went in with a black liner and outlined those. If a bee actually landed on your face, it would cast a shadow, so I went in with a shade I would normally contour my face with and shaded around the bee's legs and body. Once you've done this, you're all done. I repeated this process a couple more times on my face and chest to get 5 bees total. Next I took an old pair of lashes and cut them into 4 little pieces and glued those to the lower lash line. And that's it for this look. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you're following me on other social media so you never miss an update. And I hope to see you guys later. Bye!